Hello everyone and welcome to The No Show. I'll be your host Nathan Orenstein and today I'm going to be reviewing Evil Dead Burn. Evil Dead Burn is a sequel to 2023's Evil Dead Rise and it's written by Sebastien Vanicek and Florent Bernard, directed by Sebastien Vanicek and stars Souheila Yacoub, Tandi Wright, Hunter Doohan, Luciane Buchanan, Erroll and Maude Davey. Following the death of her husband, Alice is reunited with her in-laws at the funeral. They all return to the family's lake house, only to find that an evil has followed them and starts to pick them off one by one. Evil Dead Burn is now the sixth film in the Evil Dead franchise, but you can definitely see this without having seen any of the other ones. It is being labeled as a sequel to Evil Dead Rise, even though there isn't really any connective tissue, narratively speaking, between the two films. There is an expansion of the lore with the Deadites and the Necronomicon from the rest of the franchise, but it's not like those things ever had much of a complex history to begin with. Basically, all you need to know is that if you read from the Necronomicon, or the Book of the Dead, you summon this evil demon spirit thing that can possess other humans, turning them into Deadites. Ultimately, this is a good, standalone entry in a franchise that continues to be consistently good. In my opinion, there are two main things that Evil Dead Burn does better than the other entries in the franchise. The first is the gruesome violence and gore. If you've seen any of these movies, you know how crimey and disgusting and bloody they all are, dating all the way back to Sam Raimi's 1981 original. Evil Dead Burn takes things up a notch though, really going for some truly stomach-churning visuals at times. For the most part, this is awesome. The over-the-top gore is one of the main appeals of the Evil Dead, and Burn more than delivers. I will say though, it feels like it maybe goes too far with it at a couple points, feeling a bit more like empty shock value than anything actually exciting. This is the longest film in the franchise, and I think that's mostly a good thing, giving us so many gnarly scenes, but like I said, it can be too much at times. I'll also add that this film is shot exceptionally well, which is nothing new for the franchise to be sure, but the camera work is consistently inventive here, giving you new ways to experience gruesome blood and gore throughout. The other main thing I think that Evil Dead Burn does better than its predecessors is its characters. Now don't get me wrong, there's no one here that's going to surpass Ash Williams in the pantheon of horror icons, but as a whole, this is the most interesting cast of characters we've seen so far. Like I described earlier, we've got a young widow and her in-laws stuck in a house together, namely her husband's mom, dad, grandma, brother, and brother's girlfriend. Turns out, she doesn't really get along with them very well, and the family has some internal drama of their own, too. This tension manifests in some pretty great scenes that don't even feature any violence, just great family drama. And when some of these characters do inevitably become Deadites, it's really fun how they use some of that emotional baggage to egg on the remaining human characters. None of these characters are the deepest people by any means, but it was a nice surprise to have this extra weight added to the horrific violence happening between them. I also really ended up liking the final girl quite a bit, and her emotional ties to this family gave her enough of a backstory to make it really easy to root for her. I will say, the grandma character is a total dud. She's got dementia or some sort of similar disease that pretty much makes her nonsensical, and that's used for the vast majority of the film's comedic moments. For one, it feels like it's in pretty poor taste, but it's also only funny maybe 30% of the time. I know that a comedic undertone is a big part of this franchise, but it almost feels like they would have been better off going straight horror this time around, rather than giving us this weak humor that we end up getting in the final product. What makes Evil Dead Burn a good film and not a great one is that it's really not doing anything particularly special to stand out. Yes, the gore and cinematography are both great. Yes, we have character work that adds a bit of extra weight to everything that goes down, but ultimately, it's mostly just an Evil Dead film. I think it's consistently good from beginning to end, but doesn't really do much to push into that next tier. Even having just watched it, I already kind of get the impression that this will go down as the least memorable film in the franchise, and I don't even think it's the worst one. That being said, I personally think this is one of the most consistently strong horror franchises out there, so to say it's mostly just an Evil Dead film is hardly the worst thing in the world. Evil Dead Burn is another win for the Evil Dead franchise, and another win for the gorehounds out there. This is a nasty, brutal film, and I mean that in the best way possible. I'm a big fan of the cast as a whole here too, and I think it gives all that gnarly violence a little extra oomph, even if it certainly has enough oomph on its own. Ultimately, the movie lacks the personality to really stand out in a franchise that's full of personality, but it's still 100% worth a watch and a film that I really did love. I'm going to be giving it a 7 out of 10. If you enjoyed the review, then feel free to leave a like and subscribe if you're new. And if you've seen Evil Dead Burn already, I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. I've been Nathan Orenstein with The No Show. Thanks for watching.